Hello, I thought that given that, some Christmas and various other kind of celebrations are coming up, I might just do a little taste test through some reasonably priced Australian whiskies. It is a little bit of a problem within the industry where a lot of Australian whiskey is really quite expensive. Sometimes it's to do with tax. We've got really high tax compared to a lot of other countries, and also just the scale of the production. Like, you obviously have distilleries in Scotland that are absolutely massive and just pumping out thousands and thousands and thousands of litres a year, and a lot of the distilleries in Australia are a lot smaller than that, which obviously does end up just being more expensive. That's just how the world works. But these are all under, well, these two are generally actually under $100, and this one's under $150, and they are all very delicious, and I think showcase a really fun little range of styles that's happening in Australia now. So I thought I would have a little taste through, and if you were thinking of maybe buying a gift for someone or just a present for yourself, then maybe one of them might take your fancy. So this one, Starward, is made in Melbourne. So they used to be at like Essendon, and then they've moved down to Port Melbourne a little while ago. They're probably the biggest producer of whiskey in Australia, and I know that they are available in the States now as well. And they've actually just been kind of bought out by Diageo. So that's obviously, they've got world domination on their minds, I would say. They've got a few different types, so they do have like a blended whiskey as well, which is really good for cocktails. This one is a single malt, so 100% malted barley made at that one distillery. And then this one is actually what they call their Nova, and that's a red wine cask. So they've got a few other ones that use more like fortified wine, but this one is just like a plain like table red wine. We make a lot of Pinot Noir and such in the Yarra Valley just outside of Melbourne, so it sort of makes sense to be using those barrels that you have available to you. So it's got a really lovely fruity kind of red berry nose, nothing too aggressive. It only sits at around 41%. So definitely, not one that's gonna absolutely burn your nose off there. Lots of really nice kind of biscuity shortbread notes. And I do just find with that kind of red wine, it's quite elegant. Obviously, fortified wine, kind of sweet wine casks can have a really massive impact on the flavor, and don't get me wrong, they're absolutely delicious as well. But having that cask influence that's definitely there, and you get a nice amount of tannin, and like it definitely makes you want to go back for more. And again, as I said, those real kind of red berry flavors, which are quite Moorish, but it also just really lets the spirit shine through. So if you maybe drink something more like a Speyside whiskey, or those kind of like lighter styles from Scotland, quite light and fruity, then I think that would be potentially a good option for you there. Now, the next one along is a relative newcomer on the scene. Morris have actually been making muscat, so a fortified wine, for a very long time. It's an award-winning, like very kind of prestigious muscat made in Rutherglen, also in Victoria, so outside of Melbourne. And so they were basically like, we have all of these delicious muscat casks just kicking around, we should probably put something in them. So they've started distilling, and then they use their own casks. And that's pretty special because a lot of those casks will have had the wine in them for a very long amount of time. The problem that is actually kind of happening, again with Scotland and things like that, is basically we all don't drink enough sherry anymore, which that I'm on a one woman mission to try and change. But it does mean that a lot of casks being used now are actually just seasoned with sherry or a fortified wine like port. So they'll just kind of stick it in for basically the minimum amount of time to just get a bit of flavor there, so it hasn't really kind of soaked into the wood, and that's where you kind of can see, I guess, it just not having as much power behind it, whereas these guys obviously have access to a pretty awesome barrel selection. Always the best sound. So yeah, again, they do have a couple of different ones, but this one is their muscat finish. And muscat's like quite similar to like, kind of sweet raisiny, not as intense as like a Pedro Jimenez sherry, for instance, but definitely along those lines, a sort of after dinner wine. And it's definitely, a lot more kind of rich raisin, dried fruits on the nose there. definitely perfect for Christmas. It tastes like Christmas cake. You've got yeah, heaps of kind of woody spice and baking spice and you know, yeah, just that really kind of massive fortified wine presence where it almost feels kind of chewy, like you're chewing on, yeah, kind of toffee and raisins. So I think if you do have a bit more of a sweet tooth and you kind of like sort of maybe slightly richer style of whiskey, then that's definitely a very good option. And then our third guy, I actually didn't mean them all to be kind of Victorian or yeah, from close to Melbourne, but that's how it's ended up. So this is also made in Melbourne, kind of a bit more inner city in a suburb called Brunswick. But the guys that make it, one of them anyway, is American and kind of grew up making moonshine with his grandpa and all of that kind of thing. So they wanted to bring a more American style of whiskey, you know, rather than always just copying Scotland, just trying something a little bit different. And it actually makes sense because rye grows really well here. And also that kind of aging thing, obviously the climate here is actually a lot more similar to Kentucky or those kind of southern states that make whiskey rather than Scotland, because we do have those massive, you know, fluctuations, so it'll be 40-degree days sometimes. So they, again, have a couple of different kinds. This is kind of their slightly level up. So they do have a Solera rye, which is a little bit younger. But it's labeled as a straight rye, which technically doesn't mean anything in Australia, but they've done it according to the rules that, you know, you have to follow to be called a straight rye in the States, which is basically that has to be aged for at least 2 years. So you can smell like it's much kind of a bit more woody, almost like pencil shaving sort of thing on the nose, like quite a fresh wood kind of smell compared to, I guess, the other two there. And just generally kind of, I know it sounds weird, but it smells drier, like it smells quite, yeah, like not as kind of rich, I suppose, as the other two. Yeah, and that totally carries through. So like really lovely kind of drying spice, a lot of kind of almost like a green capsicum sort of thing. You know, really just like well balanced. I would definitely be absolutely happy just sipping on that. It's got enough going on, but it also would, well, I know for a fact that it makes some very good sort of classic cocktails using rye as well, if you feel like you're giving yourself a bit of a treat. So there we go. Hopefully that gives you some ideas the next time that you're maybe wanting to shop local, if you are here in Australia. If you're elsewhere, as I said, I think definitely Starward, I know that you can get in a few other places now, and the Gospel, I'm pretty sure, are either now in the States or just about to go into the States, so keep a little eye out for that there. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that Morris is going to be over there anytime soon, but you never know. I feel like the way that the Australian spirits industry is going, we're really just coming for you all at some point. You were going to be taking over the whole world at some point soon, I reckon. Anyway, some nice, affordable, good present whiskies for Christmas. So now you know.